All right, here we go. Well, hello there. Back for another one. My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. You never know when you're going to see us, when you're going to catch us, what we may be talking about these days, but guarantee you the content is going to be there. So check us out, myfantasysportstalk.com. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today, just what's going on in the news and the sports world in general, and answer your mailbag questions on this particular podcast. So thanks for submitting them. And we got a couple of regulars here, and we're going to talk some fantasy football, never too early. This person's already had their draft, so obviously never too early to start talking fantasy football. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Reed. My co-host is Daniel Schalk. He is our founder, president, editor-in-chief, CEO. So he's all that to you guys too at myfantasysportstalk.com. What's going on, Dan? I ain't talked to you in a while.
Yeah. Brandon, I like the open of the show. Was that a vampire you were going for? Did you even notice? You seemed a little vampirish.
I didn't. I had to rewind it.
Oh, well, watch it again. I liked it. It was something new. Maybe you should start doing.
Oh, like winter the layer. Hey, I can add some blood effects or something too. Okay, all right, got a new theme. Appreciate it.
Yeah, but I'm doing well. I'm baseball season is taking up a lot of my time. The Astros, and when I don't have time for the Astros, I still have a little bit of time to plan that wedding of mine that's coming up. So the countdown is on. We're under 130 days or something like that. So exciting times in the Schalk household.
Wow. The thick of the baseball playoffs is going to be going on during that time.
So here's the dilemma. My honeymoon in Hawaii, 16 days, is in the thick of the ALCS and World Series. So it's already been brought up. It's already been discussed between me and my lovely fiance, and she's rooting against the Astros. We'll say that.
But here's the thing. There's going to be so much relaxation time in Hawaii that it's 16 days. So 2 to 3 hours for a baseball game is not really a lot.
Here's the proposal. Let me see if you think this is fair. The proposal is we can still go to the beach. I won't even be at the bar drinking heavily during the games. I'll bring a radio to the beach. We can lay out, enjoy it, and I'll just have the game right there on the radio. That's the compromise as a future married man that will be willing to do, and I think that's a pretty good one.
Well, I guess here's my question though, Dan. What's a radio?
Well, it would be we're on the radio. We're on radio, so you should know. Maybe we're not. I don't know. We're all over.
Is that what the kids used to call a jam box?
Yes. AM radio I listen to all the time, so I'm old school, but
you don't own a radio.
No, I don't. But it would be played off of my mobile device.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Now everything encompasses video. As long as you carry your phone around, and that's the kind of the weird thing if you think about it, Dan. That now our phone has taken on a whole new meaning. A phone used to be you make phone calls on it. You're also tied to a cord. Now your phone is your entertainment device. I mean, people hardly even make telephone calls on their phone these days. They text, Snapchat, watch video, YouTube, whatever. That's crazy.
Yeah, the lovely technology, but that will hopefully allow me to access the Astros in the World Series because, World Series don't come around often, especially if your team is in it. So I can't miss that. I mean, I understand it's a honeymoon and everything, but it's the favorite baseball team too.
Yeah, there's got to be a compromise there. Though, like I was saying, 16 days, that'll be a lovely experience in Hawaii. You're not going near any active volcanoes, are you?
No, we are staying on the island of Maui, so that is currently okay, safe to be. But you never know come October, so we'll keep a monitor on it. But I don't think it'll really stop me.
Yeah, nothing can stop the Astros. So, well, good luck to you. I hope that works out. Hey, 16 days in Hawaii, you started off pretty nice to me. So, with a lovely fiance. So, the Astros, if I was rooting for the Astros, they could probably even lose, and I'm still having a really good time there. So, but Well, I just kind of putting two and two together in the dates there, and it's very possible that the Astros will be in the thick of that. Unlikely they get bounced before there, right? I mean, that'd be kind of an upset. So you're going to have something to work out there. But dates rapidly approach. You know, the summer's going to fly by. It always does. So you will be there before we know it. But we got a few questions to answer here. We're going to hear from the Purtons. Nick, anyway. I think Judy's taking a little bit of hiatus. She's got enough to worry about. But and then Gilly Stevens, our man Gilly, is back. I want to chime in with a question, and we're going to open up with some fantasy football. But before we really get into that, Dan, I just wanted to ask you about because one of our questions here kind of got me thinking about the Philadelphia Eagles situation. Now, you've been keeping up with this and what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles in the White House?
I mean, a little bit. I know probably as much as the next common man, just because I don't even like to click on and read about stories involving our president. It just kind of makes me angry. So, I heard both sides of the story, and it's
but fill me in. What did it stem from? There was some kind of bogus picture of a player kneeling, or what was going on there?
I don't even understand. I don't even understand that. Fox News brought out something about the Eagles kneeling and saying it was in protest, but in actuality, it was when the Eagles players were praying. So Fox News got in a whole bunch of trouble. They retracted the story, but I mean, ultimately, Trump disinvited or took back his invitation for the Eagles to.
They weren't going anywhere. They weren't going.
But that's exactly the thing. But you can't take back an invitation when only one player. There's been reports of 10, but only one player was confirmed to go, and that was Nick Foles, quarterback. So nobody else was going to go. So I personally think if I'm going to try to attempt to get into that guy's head, is he was like, well, these guys don't want to come. I'm going to be the one that says, no, you're not coming, to try and look like the better man there.
No, he's got it up for the NFL. That is, going all the way back to denying him ownership of a team back whenever. It's just, I don't know. I didn't even really read the story. It's been going on, so I didn't really know the details of it. So I just kind of wanted to get your take on what exactly is going on here. But and you know what? There's another point here on one of our questions I'll make a little bit later, but it's just the way the world has changed. It's just certain things we know now that we probably shouldn't know and would have never known back in the day. But in the cycle of 24-hour news and whatnot, everything becomes a story. Like who's visiting the White House and whatnot. Back in the day, without 24-hour news cycles and just print media, there wasn't room in the paper for all this garbage. There just wasn't. So I don't know. But anything else going on in the world of sports or anything that you wanted to bring up before we dive into these mailbag questions?
You know what? No, I mean, we're in the slow time of sports, so this is our downtime, our time to catch up. And Brandon, I know you've been taking advantage of that with some, I guess, spring summer cleaning. So no, I mean, the sports world is kind of dead. The NBA draft is going to be a big thing coming up in the next few weeks. The MLB draft is actually finishing up today, but who really cares about the baseball draft? I wrote an article saying how underrated it is, but it's not anything I'm glued to see of who the 33rd round pick in a baseball draft who's never going to suit up in AAA. I don't care about that. So we're in the slow time.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, though, because I do have a couple of interesting sports news notes out of my local area here, right here, Jonesboro, Arkansas. Now, I know you probably don't really know of who this guy was, but there was actually a local kid from Nettleton High School in Jonesboro drafted in the draft. I believe his name, now I'm sorry, I'm going to probably get this wrong because we didn't cover any Nettleton baseball this year, but I believe it was PJ Nielsen. I have to go back and look at my Facebook timeline to confirm that, so I'm sorry. But anyway, local kid right here from Jonesboro drafted in the MLB draft. So that's one thing that I found very interesting today. Proud of that young man. Way to go, Nettleton Raider. But also my company that I work for, Ritter Communications, which Tubetown is kind of the production company and local content channel for Ritter Communications. But Ritter Communications is sponsoring a golfer in the St. Jude Memphis golf tournament coming up that is from Jonesboro as well. So athletes coming out of the Jonesboro area here, Dan. I don't know if you're aware, but you are now, and so is the rest of the MyFantasySportsTalk.com nation.
Well, that's pretty impressive, but they don't stack up to Tia from The Bachelor, in my opinion. Who, I don't know if you've been watching The Bachelorette. The new season has started. Tia's going to make a guest appearance next week, and there's some intrigue because she dated one of the Bachelor contestants who's trying for Becca's love. What do you think about that?
Wow,
there's a Bachelorette recap within.
And I was totally unaware too. So who's the guy that she formerly dated? Is he from this area too?
No, he's actually a former football player of the Chargers, Colton Miller, or Colton something. I don't think it's Miller because he was a draft pick this year. But Colton something, I don't know. But
so here's the thing: where did he play college though? Because I don't know Tia personally. I know probably friends of circles, but so how did she even meet this guy? Is that more reality TV scripted drama that she really date him, or where'd she meet him? I want to know that.
It was all we found out on this week's episode, Brandon, was that it was a weekend in January.
Okay, so I guess she's probably made a little bit of her name for herself now, where a San Diego Charger would probably know who she is instead of a local girl from Wiener, Arkansas. So, okay, that makes more sense. So this is more recent. This isn't like a relationship 2-3 years
Correct.
ago. Okay,
Correct.
gotcha. Yeah. Makes a lot more sense.
You're going to tune in next week, I know.
Probably not. I didn't even watch the episode, any of the episodes of The Bachelor. Which one was she in? Where are we at now? What are we doing?
Oh, this is Bachelorette. I'm forced to put my Astros games on the iPad while that is on the TV at night, Monday nights. So I'm half paying attention. But Tia caught my eye, so I paid attention to that part.
Okay. So a lot of great conversation there. You folks just found out a whole lot that you probably didn't even ask for. So let's answer questions that you did ask for. The first one comes from Jacob Gurney. I'm in a dynasty league, and I was offered Le'Veon Bell and Evan Ingram for Alvin Kamara. Yes or no? And I guess my first question is, Dan, who proposed this trade? Was that our own Ryan Thomas that wants Alvin Kamara so bad? Weird. But I don't know. This ain't even close to me, Dan. I know you're not really high on Le'Veon Bell, so I'm not really sure how you're going to answer this question. So fill us in. Dynasty league going forward. I guess that makes a little bit of a difference, though. Le'Veon Bell and Evan Ingram or Alvin Kamara. Which side are you taking?
Yeah, I mean, I like this trade. It caught my eye. It made me kind of perk up because, yeah, you're right. I'm not high on Le'Veon Bell, and I am pretty high on Alvin Kamara. Not as much as Ryan Thomas, but I'm getting my fantasy rankings together. And right now, tentatively, I have Kamara as my third running back this season, and Bell is my sixth. So, they're not too far apart. But I'm very high on Evan Ingram. I mean, I was high on him last year. I loved him, and he's my number 3 tight end entering this season.
Not a throwaway player in this trade at all.
Not at all, and especially in a dynasty league. He's so young. He's coming in a second year. He's going to be one of the leading receivers on that Giants team for the next five years, at least in my eyes. I would hate to give up Kamara, but as long as Bell stays healthy, the only thing that I'm worried about is in a dynasty league is Bell's injury history. And not only that, I can see Bell just saying, screw it. I want to smoke pot and rap all day. And he'll walk away from the game at age 28, 29, and see you later. So that's a little scary. Now, I mean, you don't want to look at that, when deciding on a trade, I guess, but it's always in the back of my mind with Le'Veon Bell. But ultimately, I think it's too much that you're gaining, unless you have an elite tight end like a Travis Kelce, Gronkowski, someone like that where you don't necessarily need the tight end. I would be inclined to take that trade. And like you said, Brandon, I'm not very high on Le'Veon Bell, but I think it's Evan Ingram that seals the deal for me.
So here's the thing with me. I'm not taking this trade. Never. No, I'm not trading. My desire to have Alvin Kamara is not high enough to ever consider even probably trading him for Le'Veon Bell. But you throw in Evan Ingram, who I think is going to be a big time stud in years to come, and that Giants offense. I'm telling you guys this right now. Look for a complete turnaround now that Ben McAdoo is not the head coach and Pat Shurmur is. I don't even know what Pat Shurmur is or what he's going to be about, but he's not Ben McAdoo, and that offense seemed to fall flat on its face under Ben McAdoo. So I feel if I'm a Giants fan, if I'm a fantasy owner of any of the prominent Giants. I feel very good about a change at guard there in New York as far as the offense is concerned. So, like you said, you were out Evan Ingram owner last year. I would have no problem. He's going to be high on my draft board this year as far as tight ends go. I think he's going to be productive. He's not a throwaway player. And I just don't see that much of a gap between Alvin Kamara and Le'Veon Bell. Even if you think Alvin Kamara is going to have a great season, Le'Veon Bell is too, unless he gets hurt. But we can say that about any running back in the NFL. And here's also my theory that Mark Ingram is going to miss first 4 games, first month of the season. Yep. When he comes back, they're going to want to use him pretty heavily. They're going to force feed him right back into the action. And not only that, it depends on what their record is. They may need to start using some new wrinkles, some new weapons that they haven't had the first month of the season. So it's not like Alvin Kamara is the number one solo weapon for his team, which Le'Veon Bell clearly is, as far all around. Not only Antonio Brown, yes, but like I said before, I think that the Steelers are going to start pulling back the reins a little bit on the passing game, and I'm finally waiting for that year that Antonio Brown's numbers finally do decrease. But as far as running backs go, Le'Veon Bell is clearly the number one there in Pittsburgh. So I'm just not seeing that gap enough, to take Kamara over Le'Veon Bell even straight up. But like I said, you throw in Evan Ingram. So I don't see it. No way I'm doing it.
Yeah, I mean, straight up I would, just because I'm higher on Kamara, and especially in a dynasty league, I think the future years are brighter for Kamara.
That's true. That's underlying the dynasty league part of it.
Yep. But the Evan Ingram piece is, I think, too valuable. I mean, the amount of points. I mean, you just look at the points that Bell and Ingram are going to give you combined. They're obviously going to top what Kamara puts. So to me, unless you have that elite tight end where you don't need to play Ingram every week, I'm definitely, I'm giving up Kamara for those two. But I think the trade was actually the other way around.
He was offered Le'Veon Bell. Jacob was offered Bell and Ingram, so he'd be giving up
for Kamara. So yeah, I would give up Kamara for that haul. So I think that's too much to walk away from.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree. That is. I think that's a really good move for Jacob. I'm taking that move all day long. And I just wondered, is Ryan Thomas in that league? Ryan Thomas makes that trade. You think he wanted Alvin Kamara that bad?
Yeah, I mean, that's when he was on our guest the other week. He said that Alvin Kamara is his number one player in fantasy football, so I would assume he would definitely make that trade. That's a little crazy, but that's Ryan Thomas.
We've got a podcast that I've neglected you guys from, which we'll be bringing out soon, probably within the next week, where now we had an article on the website. Now, I do encourage you to go ahead and check that out on myfantasysportstalk.com, where Ryan Thomas wrote a piece for us saying the number one draft pick in this year's fantasy draft is blah, blah, blah. But it was Alvin Kamara, and he gives a little bit of his explanation as to why before his internet connection or his phone difficulties bit him once again. But we'll bring that podcast out, and he can address that a little bit further. So just a little bit more on that Alvin Kamara situation and his outlook for this coming season. So, but a great question, Jacob Gurney. Appreciate it. So let's move on. Big Papa, Nick Pertins chimes in. What's up, MFP? Been quiet your way, but it's okay. My fantasy baseball team is just hanging on by a limb, and a pregnant Judy is a full-time gig. I joke, but no, really. And I'll take Syndergaard, Brandon. Anyway, I have been keeping up on the Brian Colangelo scandal and wanted your guys' take. Should he be fired if he found to do those things? I mean, it's very childish, no doubt, but a fireable offense? It's Nick Pertins. So, first of all, Nick and Judy Pertins, one of our longtime, probably original viewers of the podcast, fans of the podcast, fans of the site. We appreciate it. Judy is pregnant. They're going to have their first child, which she's like two months in now, Dan, what'd you say?
I am not keeping up with her trimesters, Brandon.
But the thing is, we're going to have probably a little Pertins by World Series time, if my timeline is working.
Yeah. I think that October, November I think they told us when it was due. I'm sorry.
Like the announcement's been about 2 months ago, it seems.
Yeah. Sounds about accurate.
So anyway, that's going on. They're in our fantasy baseball league. That's why Nick was talking about taking Noah Syndergaard from me, which he's been trying all day long, all season long, really. But and you gave me a shot, Nick. Just it wasn't very long on the podcast. I'll try to find the clip and rewind it for you if you like. But you probably heard it originally when it came out of my mouth. Well, actually, when you were dogging me for not taking any trades, I'll never win anything. Well, you were doing pretty good then, but somehow you guys have slipped, and now this guy is the number 2 seed. If the playoffs were to start right now today at 6-3, the Nick and Judy show +1 is down to 5-4. So I think I'm doing all right. I don't know what happened there, but it's a long season. It's a long season. We'll see about that. But I'm gonna hang on to my guy DL or not for now until I figure it all out. But this Bryan Colangelo situation, Dan, you've been keeping up with that. I mean, the whole thing is just weird. And this, again, I'm going to continue this theme of crap that we probably wouldn't have known about 20, 25 years ago. We wouldn't have, because it wouldn't have existed. There wouldn't have been social media accounts like this. But just another thing that's a big news story over the new age of social media that's just kind of blown up. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to fathom. I mean, I saw a report today that the 76ers are confident that he was unaware of the Twitter accounts.
So let's kind of back up, if you don't mind, Dan. Yeah. You probably know more about it. I just really I heard about it a few days ago, but I didn't really keep up with the story. So give some backstory to it for the folks at home that may not have heard.
Yeah, so basically there are these, I guess, phony Twitter accounts with, random handles. Some of them were just, I mean, funny. Some about Sam Hinkie and things like that and the process. But basically the Twitter accounts sent out negative tweets all season, against his players like Joel Embiid and coaches and different things. So it was negative tweets, and supposedly they were sent by Bryan Colangelo, the 76ers general manager. So a whole investigation was launched, and whether or not he knew anything about these Twitter handles, if he was the one sending the tweets. I mean, it's a little crazy. The players have spoken out about it, saying this just can't be. But if it is, this isn't right.
But the story he's giving and investigation has somewhat uncovered, I guess, is that it was his wife and not him, or at least that's the story.
Oh, really? I didn't even see that. So that's
he's kind of pushing it on his wife, and I think she's even taken some of the responsibility for it. He actually used the words and said that my wife went rogue. So it's apparently his wife that created at least 2 or 3 of these accounts. There was one that was created that was never even used. So not a story there at all. I really don't care. But it's supposedly that it was his wife who went rogue. There was just some sensitive information that only some of the people in the top circle of the Philadelphia 76ers organization that would have known about. So I can see, Bryan Colangelo going home, venting to his wife about situations. She sees him in distress over that. She gets mad. She gets stressed. She takes to these phony accounts and expresses some things. So I could see that happening, but that's a new wrinkle. That's a new wrinkle to the story, man. That's complicated. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, whether or not to answer Nick's question, whether or not it's a fireable offense, I think it is. Just because you're an NBA general manager, you should be held to a pretty higher standard. Whether it was your wife or you, you can't go back. Like if he was found guilty and they didn't fire him, he's still a representative of the players, and he's recruiting players to not only join the 76ers. How do you think, LeBron is their big free agent prize this offseason? You think Bryan Colangelo found guilty of doing this stuff? Do you think LeBron is going to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to join your squad? I've actually heard a rumor that the 76ers will be better off firing Colangelo to get LeBron to come to them, because he'll have more power within that front office if Colangelo is gone, and LeBron is the quasi general manager like he kind of is right now in Cleveland.
So what if the story is, and it's found to be, I don't know, believable or not able to be disputed, I guess, that it was his wife who really went rogue and Bryan knew nothing about these accounts that she was doing on the side? What if that's the case?
It's tough. I mean, it's life isn't fair is what I would say as I'm firing him, because it's still, it's still someone in your family, someone you're married to. So I would think you got to take responsibility for not only your own actions, but somebody else's within your family. So I would still say peace. See you, Calange.
So could it be the same lawyer to draw up his resignation or firing papers and divorce papers at the same time? Would that be the route we're going there?
Yeah, that would be possible. We'll see if he really loves her.
So I don't know. It's a mess, but it is a tough situation because, as Nick says, childish, yes, but fireable, I just don't know. The only thing that really matters is how Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Paul George, and LeBron James feel about it. How they feel about Brian Colangelo. Do they know Brian Colangelo? Do they have any kind of relationship with Brian Colangelo? Paul George and LeBron James speaking more specifically, because I know that he already has some sort of relationship with his current players, but some of those tweets were involving Joel Embiid and even Markelle Fultz and some of the behind the scenes about his rehabilitation and what was going on there this year with the number 1 draft pick in last year's draft. So I don't know that. I'm not sure. We can write about this all day long. Other media outlets can write about this all day long, but unless you know what kind of relationship these players actually have with Brian Colangelo, then I don't think none of it really matters. The only thing that matters is how those players feel about him. And to me, if they were willing to keep Brett Brown, which I think he was so outcoached in these playoffs this year, particularly in that series against Boston, that I'm not sure how he kept his job. I know there's loyalty there, and I understand that. But to me, this is plain as day. I'm not sure Brett Brown is the coach to guide an elite team. Brett Brown was fine when you're tanking and getting draft picks, okay, and winning 18 games a year. Anybody can. I can do that, okay? I'm not sure he's the coach to lead an elite level team, but they had loyalty. They offered him an extension. So you got that aspect of it. So if they're willing to do that, I'm thinking they're willing to let this whole thing wash over unless the players kind of revolt against it and just not rock the boat and keep on going with what's going. So I don't know, but like I said, it really just depends on how the players feel about it. You may be right though, Dan. It may have to boil down to a PR move to keep the coveted prize of LeBron James in your scope. And I don't know. But just again, another one of these stories that we probably would never know of 20, 25 years ago. It wouldn't have happened 20, 25 years ago. So now it's the age of social media. Anyone can post anything out there, and it becomes news relevant. So I don't know. Weird. We'll keep it. I actually heard there was supposed to be a decision about that today. So since I haven't got a ESPN notification, I'm not sure he's going to get fired.
Yeah, I think they're still probably reviewing the details. I think we'll probably find out soon, probably before this podcast is even out to everybody. But it'll be interesting to see what they do because, the 76ers have a chance to be a championship caliber team with, the addition of a couple pieces because they're young, they're talented, and they can make things happen next year and kind of shake up the NBA. So it'll be interesting. This is huge, that front office decision.
They're major players now. That is no doubt. So appreciate the question, Nick. Take care of Judy, okay? We'll talk to you soon. The last question on this podcast, let's hear from our man, Gilly Stevens. So this is another one, Dan. This is another one. It's a silly, silly story that I don't even know why it was ever even printed, but it has to do with your Dallas Cowboys. It goes like this. Hey, Dan, how do you feel about Zeke and Dak buying a whole bunch of dick guns? Gilly Stevens. And I'll be honest with you, Dan, when I first saw this, you had to fill me in on what was going on here. Send me a link because I didn't really know nothing about this. But what I thought I interpreted when I first read it was that Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott went out and bought all the guns Dick's Sporting Goods had. That's what my first thought was. Like, damn, that's pretty nice of those guys. They wanted to support Dick's. They bought all the guns they had. So, but no, it wasn't that.
No, they bought, I guess, a whole bunch of Dick Squirt guns. But here's in Gilly's question. I don't know if he knows this, but this is a big story if you're a Cowboys fan because it shows how good of a season we're about to have. So not only are Dak and Zeke getting along, buying some dick guns, but the whole reason they bought these dick guns is because they took the entire offensive line on vacation. They took them on vacation, rented a boat. They're having a blast, and I think it's Miami or I don't know, someplace warm where you're enjoying it. But
it was someplace in Florida.
Exactly. So if you're taking out your teammates, showing the love to the offensive line, that's going to bring a great locker room together.
But that's not what the story was about. That's not where the media, everyone who talked about this and broke it, was focusing in on.
Right. And so, I mean, that shows the new age of media and where the story goes. But I think the underlying story is that they're spending time together and they're building that bond for the season. And despite my cat formerly being named after him and him hanging up on my wall, Dez Bryant not being in that locker room could end up being a positive for the Cowboys. So this could be just another sign of that. And I'm excited for the season because it's not like the Cowboys don't have talent. They just have to put it all together. And I think this is a step one to do that, to achieve, team success.
Yeah, it's actually a great thing. Just the focus is or happen to go on this, childish, sophomoric type of storyline, which we would have known nothing about. Athletes, entertainers, we would have known nothing about their personal lives as much, 30 years ago. No chance, no way. Now everything they do is in the media. It's made a story out of. Now, was it silly? Yeah, it was silly. I mean, it's a great bonding moment, I guess. Very intimate moment for some guys to share some, dick squirting guns, especially in a strip club, and in a bar. I don't know. I didn't really meant to force that, accusation upon them. They weren't in a strip club, not at that particular moment. It was just a bar, Alex's bar or something like that, just a bar. But yeah, this stuff wouldn't have been even reported on, 30 years ago. It's nothing. Who cares? You're right, Dan. The real story is the bonding of the offensive linemen and these guys that they're going to have to protect here in the next few months. So, but yeah, just all this stuff, even the Jameis Winston situation. Remember that on the table, that comment he made about 3 years ago while still at Florida State, that wouldn't even have made news, 30 years ago. It's a college kid saying something stupid and sophomoric. So what? We're going to put that in the news. So this is just one of those things that kind of blew up. But I kind of agree with you. The real story should be the bonding of the offensive line, having a good time. Let's hope it translates into some success, So, and hey, how about this we got to rename Des the Kitty. I mean, we really do. How about Tavanya?
What?
Tavanya.
No.
Yeah, one of your new weapons there, It's got to be a feminine name, though. See, the whole thing is, it's a female cat, Dan.
I understand that, but it's tough to get out of the Des name calling because that's what she comes to. So I got to get the formerly known as really quick and then Des.
Have you ever just tried calling her, here, kitty, kitty? Would she respond to that too?
Des the kitty. Baby kitty. We call her baby kitty a little bit. Hey, baby kitty. No.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So great stories. That was a lot. That was a lot to talk about. A lot of interesting topics there. So, but man, can't wait for football season. So what is the outlook for your Cowboys, Dan? What are you seriously, realistically expecting this year?
Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. That's where we're going to end this particular podcast. But thanks for all the questions, guys. Look for future podcasts. Like I said, we're going to drop that podcast where Ryan Thomas talks about his explanation of why he thinks Alvin Kamara is number one in the world this year and backs up that trade offer, I guess, from Jacob Gurney was offered. And also on that podcast, we ranked quarterbacks, that particular podcast. And we're going to drop that. So some fantasy quarterback rankings coming out.
If you say so, yes, I believe you.
I don't remember, but it was great fantasy football information. So that coming out, more mailbag questions coming out. So check out the future podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com and all the changes to the site. Hope you guys like it. Keep submitting questions and keep submitting your feedback. For my co-host, Dan Shaw, I am Brandon Reed. Till next time, peace. All right, I guess we can go ahead and bring them in for this one.
You want me to bring him in right now?
Yep, why not?
Okay.
Somebody at the door?
I don't know. You can hear my dog barking?
Yeah, if that was Romo, yep.
Yep.
I didn't know that we had squeezed that much out of that, but
Yeah.
all good. You're wearing a little soccer jersey. Who's okay? Let me say that's not FC Barcelona, is it?
Hell no.
Manchester. Manchester. Which one is it? It's not United, is it?
You got it.
That's Manchester United.
Yeah, if you would have said City, I would have gotten off.
Okay. I really didn't think that was their colors. For some reason, I was thinking they were the baby blue and white one.
No. Baby blue is City. Red is United.
Gotcha.
Their moniker. Well, they're like mascot, I should say, is the Red Devils, and City are the Citizens. Is their team name, to get like really specific.
Yep, I like FIFA soccer, but I just don't keep up with club level soccer.
I mean, yeah, World Cup is always more exciting.
Oh yeah,
it just comes every 4 years.
International soccer, period. To me, that's really just all I keep up with.
It's hype is so real. It's exciting to have the World Cup around again.
So you want to talk a little bit about that too? Just World Cup coming up and the
World Cup
and stages and everything.
World Cup starts June 14th.
Mm-hmm. So what is that? A week from?
That's a week from
Friday.
Week from Friday, I believe they start the group stages. All the group stages will be active. That will last, I think, for 3 weeks at best, and then we jump into the round of 16. Knockout stages.
And it goes by so quick. It's like the NCAA tournament. It goes by so quick.
Honestly, I think it has the same time span. So we should be done
about 3 weeks.
No, maybe a little bit longer than that, because we do have to go through a lot of scheduling with the knockout stage.
The group play is the time consuming part.
The group play is most time consuming because each team in the group has to play three matches.
That takes about 2 weeks. So it
takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get through all that, and then the knockout stage takes about a week to 2 weeks. So yeah, I'd say it's a month competition. It's almost a month of doing this, so it is definitely not for the faint of heart.
I love it. I wish it was every year, but I understand.
I don't. I think it makes it so much more.
It does
more meaningful that it is only every 4 years.
But that's why U.S. fans are pissed because it's gonna be 8 years in between. I hope only 8 years.
You'll find no other U.S. fan more PO'd than me that we could not beat Trinidad Tobago, 2 different countries in one, and we could not qualify to get. I actually played in. If you for those of you who play FIFA. FIFA 18, the World Cup mode just got put into the game, and I played it.
Oh, you play the whole World Cup?
You play the whole World Cup. The mode is not that in depth. You just play the group stages and the knockout stage. I wish they would have had the qualifying rounds in there, but that's just my little.
You play through the whole World Cup tournament, though.
You play for the World Cup tournament. I put USA in the spot they would have had.
I'm buying that. Today.
Yeah, it's worth it.
I didn't know.
Worth it. FIFA 18 is worth it. I played USA in the spot they would have had in the World Cup. I got to the final with the team they put out. I lost to Switzerland 2-0. I played on the hardest mode and got all the way to the final. So if I can do it,
Trinidad and Tobago. That's where John Paul was from, Dan. Remember the sprinter in Seinfeld? John Paul. He was Trinidad and Tobagan.
Trinidad. I don't know. Trinidad and Tobago's team. It's 2 different countries or provinces or whatever they call them rolled into one because they didn't have enough people on both islands to create a full club, but. They created their own team.
Didn't they beat the U.S. like twice in the last couple of weeks?
Yep. They beat us to actually knock us out of qualifying, and Costa Rica got, or I think that Costa Rica or Panama got our spot. I replaced, I believe, Costa Rica when I did my own little USA if they went to the World Cup thing. But I was stunned.
Yep, Costa Rica made it. They're in Brazil's division.
There you are. Oh, I played in the group that had Belgium, England, and Denmark. I think Denmark was in it, or not Denmark. Belgium, England, and Panama. I replaced Panama in the World Cup. That's the team they would have been.
So that's Panama was another CONCACAF team that made it, huh?
Yep, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one that they would have been in. I checked to see where exactly they would have placed, and that was where I researched where USA would have been selected.
Yeah.
So
I mean, honestly, I'm not like typical American fans. You know, the patriotism, like when the Olympics come in, if USA is not in it, then the Americans aren't going to watch it. I really doesn't make that much. I would have root for US, yes, but that doesn't change any. I'm going to watch every minute of it I can.
Oh yeah, if
the
USA is in the World Cup, just like the one in 2014 in Brazil, USA was locked in when they went up against Belgium and nearly beat them and should have beat them. Unfortunately, the referees cost us a lot of what we could have been a good final, because we would have made it onto the semis and definitely would have beaten not Germany. Who they face? Who did Germany face last year? Or not last year?
The last World Cup.
They faced not
Spain.
No, Spain got knocked out early. Who did Germany face in the
World Cup? Was it Argentina? Was it Spain? Argentina?
It was who did they face in the World Cup?
Italy?
Final? No, it wasn't Italy. They got knocked out early too.
I don't remember. Honestly,
I can't remember for the life of me. I don't know why either. But it's another powerhouse in the world. It wasn't France. I gotta look that up.
I don't even think France made it last time.
Did they not qualify for 2014?
I think France had a major fall off.
Yeah, they might have not qualified. Their team is so good this year. France is I don't have them winning. I have Germany winning it back to back. I think their team is so talented. Portugal, no. Ronaldo doesn't usually show up in finals. He's quite good at missing them, as a matter of fact. Ironically, the two best players in the world have a very hard time getting their teams to the finals of the World Cup. They're usually knocked out in the round of 16 or the quarterfinals.
Uruguay?
So ironic. Nope. Luis Suarez is not good enough to bring that team all the way there. We're getting close. It's not England. They never get there.
Yeah, I don't remember. Okay, we'll start it. We'll start it. We can talk about this.
We'll find it out later. I'll throw that here. It's like a quiz question. Which teams we're in it?
All right, so here we go. All right, in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. It's soccer time. I know all you folks have been waiting for some soccer time from My Fantasy Podcast, myfantasysportstalk.com, and we're here to let you in on all what's going on. It's World Cup time, World Cup 18 coming from Russia, and we're going to break it all down. Myself, Brandon Reed, co-host Dan Schalk is here. What's up, Dan? Another one.
Soccer is also known as football.
Football. Footy ball. Yeah. So how pumped are you for the World Cup, Dan Schalk?
I will not watch a single second because the U.S. is not in it.
You're one of those guys.
I would have thought a couple of U.S. games, but now that they're not in it, I really have no interest. I don't understand the game, and I just the way the clubs and the leagues, there's all different ones, but yet same teams, different players and teams. It's too much for me, but that's luckily why Dylan Davis Tirado is part of our My Fantasy Sports Talk team, because he can take it.
Oh, yeah.
The concept of the game is not that hard, Dan. You get the ball in the net.
Well, I understand that, but it's the rest.
Brandon, there's a lot more about putting the ball in the net. Trust me, that is only
this true, but it's like not hard to follow the game though. If you're just an average spectator, it's not hard to follow the game. I'm one of those guys that love a 0-0 game going into the 89th minute. That's what I live for. But anyway, we brought the expert in. That's that guy right there, Dylan Davis Tirado. We call him DDT because big news we probably told you about is that we're launching a new podcast, or this guy right here is DDT, that we're going to be featuring. And it's going to be a soccer dedicated podcast from DDT. So tell the folks at home what's going on, what's new, and what it's going to be about.
Thank you. So what's up, everybody? Because I haven't been on the podcast in so long. I really am excited to announce the Hat Trick podcast is coming to My Fantasy Sports Talk later this month. We've started a mailbag so you guys can get involved with the show, because number one, the Hat Trick podcast is for you guys, the fans, just like My Fantasy Sports Talk. It's for you, the fans. We are all fans of sports, and we want to talk about it all the time. And I want to talk about soccer all the time. And unfortunately, the Premier League doesn't last long enough. Neither does the Champions League. So I figured to keep you guys engaged, because you were so into the top 5 series and the predictions, and I will have so many predictions coming out soon. Of course, with the World Cup coming up, I'll be covering that as well. I'm going to be glued to the TV. I'm going to try and watch as many games as possible, especially the crucial ones going into the knockout stage. But the podcast is so that way over the summer, you and I can respond to each other's comments about the game of football, talk about transfers that are going on. There's been some big ones that have gone down. There's some potential ones that are going to be happening during the World Cup, so we'll stay tuned for that. And of course, we're going to talk about, football not just in England, but in France, in Germany, in Spain, the United States. We're going to talk about football everywhere. And I want this podcast to be for you guys to come in, ask your questions, submit your questions to hattrickpod@gmail.com. I always post every day about the podcast, so certainly go on my Twitter. You can find my Twitter handle through the top 5 articles. I'll certainly be sure to make sure I put it out there every day, how you can get involved with the podcast. It is probably the biggest thing I have done for the website since I've joined, and I'm not saying nervous, but I'm very excited to get it started. We're going to be going live on video probably around the end of June is when I target starting the podcast series. And it's really convenient because that'll be when the most of the transfers will be going live and the World Cup will almost be over by that time. So it'll be a good time for us to start it up. And we'll carry it on through the summer, and we'll see about carrying it really in more depth throughout the next football season to kind of replace some of the top 5 series, to take a little bit lighter load off the writing because it was so hard for me to write everything, and use the podcast as a way to get you guys involved with learning more about the Premier League and also getting involved with other leagues. I really want to expand what we talk about on My Fantasy Sports Talk in terms of football and taking it out of the Premier League and putting it in Ligue 1 in France, in the Bundesliga in Germany, Serie A in Italy, and just going as far out as we can. There have been so much in questions going into the mailbag. I had to pick the best 5 because I just could not get through, honestly, the 20 I wanted to write about. And you guys have been amazing. You've been submitting questions today, yesterday, and I have my top 5 so far selected. But if we get some good ones, we'll throw some more in there. But for now, that is the big announcement. There's a podcast, the Hat Trick Podcast, starring me. I don't have a co-host. I'd like to get one. The candidacy is open for a co-host if I can get one. I will try. But for now, this will just be me heading it up, and we'll build it as it goes. This is a work in progress.
So, but you made a good point there, because something I do want to stress to the folks at home who are watching is that this is not a temporary World Cup type update podcast. This is something that's going to be the World Cup. It just so happens this is great timing because you get to talk about that as well. But
right.
This is really a club level, soccer level of all levels type of podcast that we look to go on throughout the future and beyond.
Oh, absolutely. This is something I want to do for a very long time. I want this to be like a part of my regular routine I do honestly in life, is to do this podcast. Other things I've thought about attaching to it, a lot of questions were honestly requests that, that I actually throw more content with the podcast as time goes on. And I'm actually thinking about that. Something I've been thinking about doing is once FIFA 19 drops, I've thought about kind of getting into the whole gaming thing, and maybe along with the podcast, you guys will also get episodes of, FIFA 19 career mode, which is a huge mode in FIFA. The Ultimate Team's very popular. The Journey, the little story mode they throw in there. And of course, there's so much content just in gaming alone that relates to soccer. There's esports, and that is huge. I don't mind throwing that into the coverage going into this year. I just know that we set a great bar covering the Premier League, and I really want to take a step further and really engage you guys because you want so much more, and I want to give you all so much more. So
if we can get the gaming aspect of it off the ground, that would be huge too, because like you said, e-gaming is huge, and I'm all down for it, man. I've actually dabbled in that a little bit myself as far as capturing, games and whatnot. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work,
but I want to put the work in. I think that it would be a challenge that I need to go after. I need to try doing this because I've gone and covered every match week, save for one of the Premier League. I skipped one because it was just only 4 games. I got every single match week, and I watched probably, gosh, I don't know. I've watched well over 100 games. I mean, I can retain games to memory. Sorry for the train in the background.
You're a train. Yeah, I was about to say.
This train in the background is so annoying. And, this is just something that is really, it's not the easiest thing to do. It's certainly going to take time for the podcast to get popular, but you guys have already thrown in the mailbag like crazy. So I just think there's nothing to do but go up from here. And I just can't wait to really get the wheels rolling and really see, what you guys want the podcast to be. Do you want to just be like fan back questions? Do you want to go into different subjects, but different leagues? Because I'm going to hit a various amount of topics. This podcast is a great opportunity, like Brandon said, to really hit the club level just as much as the international level, and to get your guys' takes on teams that I don't even know about. Talk about leagues we don't really get to present to the main media.
Great point there. I just want to interject for a second because actually there is now this is semi-pro soccer, but Memphis is actually getting involved in a new semi-pro league. I don't remember if this is an expansion or what, but Memphis is getting actually a semi-pro soccer team as well. And if I can remember correctly, if this was actually finalized, I believe they'd be playing in AutoZone Park or whatever they call it now, FedEx Park or whatever it is, which is the AAA affiliate for the Cardinals, the Memphis Redbirds. It's their baseball park. So I believe they'd be playing there. So that's going to be exciting. And just the buzz around Memphis is pretty big about that too, because it's something new. It's something unique. They've had soccer before at a semi-pro level, indoor soccer leagues. And it's just something new and exciting to do during off seasons of, football, regular football, American football. So it should be good. So that's just a little something too, because even if you're the semi-pro level, just like any other sport in the world, you're the semi-pro level 1 year, or, one season, 1 year, you're one step away from being in the spotlight. So that's big too.
Yeah, it is big. Memphis getting its own team is big because there's actually in the MLS in the United States, shifting our focus there, they just added Cincinnati as a new city that will hold an MLS team. And Miami just got one through David Beckham. David Beckham's getting his own MLS team. We just saw Los Angeles FC get off the ground this year. We've seen Atlanta United do very well. And we know that expansion teams in MLS have shown some success. New York City FC has done okay. Minnesota United still taking its time. But Memphis getting its own semi-pro league, they're probably playing in the North American Soccer League because that's the semi-pro under level of MLS. And they don't have an affiliation with each other, but they should be honestly a great relegated. Like if you don't do well in the MLS, you get sent down to North American Soccer League. And it's something to dabble with, but Memphis getting their own team is big.
Well, and to me, soccer is just one of those sports that's kind of enjoyable to watch, really no matter the talent level. Of course, the talent level matters, as far as the level of excellence and what you're actually seeing. Like World Cup is way up there, but soccer is just fun to me. I don't care if it's girls. I'll watch college girls soccer.
Man, I watched if you remember, the USA women went to the World Cup in 2015. They had a huge run. I
watched every game.
I was glued to the TV when I saw the U.S. It's how, honestly, their exposure to Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, Abby Wambach, you name it, their exposure is
Carly Lloyd.
Amazing. Carly Lloyd
hitting the equivalent of a half-court buzzer beater.
Pretty much. Hope Solo and all the drama she brings. Sorry, I got off tangent there. Gosh, she's drama. You think LeBron James is bad? Hope Solo is the LeBron James of U.S. soccer.
She's beautiful, dangerous. She's a gorgeous girl that you're scared to death of.
Yeah. She's an imposing woman, but I think that's honestly a great facet about the U.S. women's team.
Well, that was they're better for later scandals, wasn't it? Wasn't that one of her later scandals? She beat up like her
Jeremy Stevens, NFL player.
Yeah,
that's who it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a 6'8" tight end, and she beat the crap out of him. So.
She did not just beat the crap out of him. She had to get a restraining order against her. I mean, Hope Solo is a 6 foot something imposing goalkeeper. She's one of the greatest goalkeepers in the world. But the exposure is amazing. the women's team does better than the men's national team. They're going to go to the World Cup next year.
Oh, a lot better. Yeah.
There's a women's World Cup next year. They do one after the men's, and they're going to be there. The men's aren't.
Yep.
And that's embarrassing, somewhat.
It's been like that for a while, though. It really has.
It has. The women's team has done better than the men's, and people wonder why. Well, they're run better.
Well, there's too much other focus for young men in America. Basketball, football, baseball,
Indeed.
Soccer is so secondary. Whereas there's not those really next level type of opportunities for women in the United States for professional sports. But
no, there's not. There needs to be.
Soccer's definitely there. So
I mean, the biggest star in the United States right now is Christian Pulisic. I mean, people are starting to know his name, but that's only because he plays in Germany. The next big player that gains as much popularity as him is Jordan Morris. He plays in Seattle, but he doesn't get as much notoriety as Christian Pulisic. And I mentioned this in one of the responses to the mailbag questions of exposure to the MLS with American players would jumpstart the men's national team. But, that's a whole nother conversation for another time.
So let me get Dan's take on something real quick. So how do you feel about maybe the gaming scenario that DDT mentioned and maybe taking something like that off the ground as well? I think there's some success there. We would just have to recruit a different bunch of writers that could get together and maybe create more of an e-league section for myfantasysportstalk.com. Could be big.
Yeah, and not only that, but I've become a little bit more familiar with Twitch. Where the whole site that basically will record and share those gaming games and files, and I mean esports is blowing up. It's on TBS or TNT every Saturday night.
Yep, it is.
Fox runs all the time.
To deal with them too.
Yeah, so I mean it's definitely becoming a more and more popular thing. So I'm all for it. I'm not one to personally dabble into it too much. But I mean, the whole millions of people are. So yeah, it's definitely a growing industry, and I personally have friends that hate soccer, but they love the FIFA game. So
I don't get that at all.
They swear by it. They don't like soccer. They don't even watch soccer, but they play FIFA all the time.
They play FIFA.
Yeah. See, I'm not really like that. I don't watch hockey, so I don't play NHL. I don't
play. I like hockey. I just don't like NHL because it hasn't been good since 15. I mean,
well, and I'm not a parent, but I've heard from many parents with particularly, young boys, teenage boys that are into gaming, that their sons will sit there and watch YouTube clips of people playing video games more than they actually play the games themselves.
That's me. I watch a guy. If you don't know him yet, you should. His name is the Master Bucks on YouTube, but he does FIFA career modes, and honestly, the game and him, I credit honestly with my love for soccer. Those two entities honestly made me the soccer fan that I am, especially playing FIFA because I play it religiously every day. I log in every day on FIFA. There won't be a day I won't.
And there's another great example of this. I know DDT knows, but there's a WWE superstar. You may not even know him if you don't keep up with wrestling, but Xavier Woods is probably known much, much more for his Up, Up, Down, Down YouTube channel. When all he does is play video games with wrestlers and different people. That's all. That's really all he does.
Watch it every day.
Throwback video games to the newest, current, latest, hottest video games. But we're talking about each one of his video. He posts gets millions of views, and I don't know how many millions of subscribers. But I think it's probably safe to say he's part of a trio in WWE known as New Day, which are very popular, very funny guys. But I would say he's probably transcended that even further and made more of a name for himself personally from Up, Up, Down, Down.
I agree. I mean, like the biggest thing is Up, Up, Down, Down became so big. Vince McMahon let him bring the entire brand of Up, Up, Down, Down into the WWE universe.
He's cross-branding and he's cross-promoting.
He's cross-branding it because he sees how successful one man's just simple gaming channel turned into an absolute empire. Like Up, Up, Down, Down is one of the biggest YouTube channels in the world. It's rivaling some people's gaming channels that they thought were going to be bigger for the rest of their lives. They have faded from the picture. Xavier Woods is probably one of the biggest YouTubers in the world right now.
So let's talk a little bit before we get out of here about the World Cup itself. I know you're excited for it. I really hadn't kept up with too much about the groupings and pairings, but I finally looked at it because we are about a week away now from the
Yes,
actual
we
World
are.
Cup 18 starting. So have you had a chance to? So let me ask you, I know you've kept up with this a lot more than I have.
Mhm.
I know who the top dogs are, but who is going to be your odds on favorite if you had to pick 2, 3 teams that you think are going to finish top of the World Cup and win it all?
Well, for first, second, and third place, I would say the final, if things work out, I would think Germany, and I'm gonna go Brazil to make the final, with France coming in third. I would say those are my top three. Um, I think Brazil will rebound from their blunder 7-1 defeat against Germany when they lost Neymar and pretty much lost their entire team when he went off the game prior. I think they're a fantastic group. Their depth is so much greater this year with the additions of Gabriel Jesus now coming up through the ranks. Malcolm, there's just so much they have in depth. Germany as well. France is so much better now. Paul Pogba, Kylian Mbappe, Antoine Griezmann, Thomas Lamar, just to name a few names that'll be great there. Samuel Umtiti, Hugo Lloris at goalkeeper. There's just so much talent there. Other teams that could make moves for the final and deep into the tournament, Portugal are very good with Ronaldo. Argentina, I don't really give much of a looking to, even though Messi's on there. I just don't think he has enough to bring him there. Uh, Other teams that could do well, I think England could honestly do okay, but not very far into the tournament. My honestly big sleeper team, I think you should look out for though, and this is going to sound crazy, but Iceland. Look out for Iceland because of how well they did at the Euros, the amount of attention they grabbed, and the fact that that team took on some powerhouses in Europe and beat them. I think Iceland's like my sleeper team to go far. And then a team I expect to not get out of the group stage that might be a surprise to people is Russia, the host country.
Well,
I don't
I
think
was
they'll make
just
it out.
okay, and I don't really know how powerful of a team this Russia team may be, but I was just looking at it and I thought they had a fairly easy draw. I'm saying, what's with the home advantage draw in the Group A? They're in there with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and then a pretty good team in Uruguay. But I think they should make it out of that group play over Saudi Arabia and Egypt. I kind of thought that was a
I
weak
don't think
group.
they can beat Egypt. I think if Mo Salah plays, Egypt gets out of that group. I think Mo Salah and even the team that they have, it may not look like a strong team, but Russia does not have the strongest team they had from last World Cup because of the age. They're not the younger mid-level age group they used to be. They're a lot older now. And Egypt does have strength, especially with Mo Salah as a primary goal scorer. And Uruguay have a very decent team with Luis Suarez up front and with players like Jose Maria Jimenez at center back. And their team overall has decent players to really move them ahead of Russia. Now, I don't think it'll be a group that's like a landslide. Russia, I think, could get out of the group, but I see them finishing third. I don't see Saudi Arabia getting a point out of that group, but I've been wrong before. The World Cup is not a place to really see a definite winner. There are upsets all the time in the World Cup, so I can't say for sure, but I don't think Russia is getting out of this group.
Yeah, once you get to knockout play, anything can happen. But Germany looks to be like in a fairly difficult group. I don't know. Germany's in there with Sweden. And then
Not well without Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Sweden will be a cakewalk.
Mexico, which has been awful lately.
No, they can eat. I don't think Mexico is a threat. I think they'll get out of the group with Germany though.
The Group B is also kind of interesting with Portugal and Spain, and then
That's
Morocco.
a group of death. I kind of would put that as a group of death, I guess ish.
Morocco and then Iran. So
I mean, it's not a really great. I don't really know. There's a group of death because there's usually a big group that like no one can
seems
really
to
get
be
through.
balanced. It's usually the group the United States gets thrown in.
Yeah, and it would have been the one United States. You know what? And here's the funny thing: the World Cup mode I did in FIFA, I put United States in the group of death, and I got out of the group. I think it was the one with
So,
Belgium, Denmark, and England. I think that's
yeah,
the group of death
Group
this year.
G, it's pretty strong. So Panama made it from CONCACAF along with Belgium, Tunisia, and then England. So you got a couple of big powerhouses there, England
Tunisia,
and Belgium.
that's the one. I wonder what the group of death is in. They're really not that tough.
It seems to be spread out fairly well to me.
Very even this year. I don't really know where the best teams are per se, because I feel like the World Cup levels the playing field surprisingly in terms of what teams can get ahead, because the chemistry has not been built as you would with a club team. The World Cup is pretty much a ragtag group of guys, great players, to try to figure out how to play well together to move forward. Managers have a tough time putting international teams together because they have to find a way to get the players that play with each other, or to find the players that, have played with each other in the past to be on the team. Sometimes the best players don't get to play in the World Cup. And a great example, this year, a lot of players have been omitted from World Cup squads. Examples such as Leroy Sané from Germany was the most recent exclusion. You have Raldo Neglan from Belgium. He's not being used. They're using Marouane Fellaini, who's one of the worst players in Manchester United squad. Neglan was one of the best players in Roma. Roma went very deep in the Champions League this year. There's so many players that were omitted, and it's shocking. Anthony Martial from France was omitted. He had a great season at Manchester United. It's a shock. It's a surprise to see certain players not in it. And it's only because certain players only know how to play with certain players. The front three in Brazil is probably going to be Neymar, Phil Coutinho, and maybe Roberto Firmino. Coutinho and Firmino know how to play with each other. They played together at Liverpool, but that's the most extent. Neymar's just Neymar. He's one of the greatest players in the world right now. You can't omit him from the squad. There's certain ways of getting into the squad. There's certain ways of not. But that factor changes how you look at a World Cup in terms of who's strong and who's not. There's no reason why a team such as Costa Rica couldn't beat a team like Germany. It could happen. One move, one call from a referee, one false move by a player, a red card changes an entire game around. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins this World Cup. I still pick Germany, France, and Brazil as my top three teams to place in the tournament.
There you go. Can't wait, man. Really, U.S. or not, I really can't wait for it. It kicks off a week from Thursday, I believe, the 14th. So
14th,
we're gonna get straight into it. So, but anyway, the new podcast. Tell the folks at home again how to reach you to submit their mailbag questions and to find out more about the podcast or possibly be involved in the podcast and going forward to how to reach you.
Of course, if you guys want to get involved with the mailbag, I'm going to submit mailbag posts every Monday. I will go Monday through Friday looking at submissions. If you want to submit, go to hattrickpod@gmail.com, all lowercase. If you also want to inquire about things about the show, ideas that you might even have for the show, because I'm very open to receiving them, you can get at my Twitter handle, @TheDavisTorado, on Twitter. I also, if you follow me on Facebook, I don't think you do, but I post regularly to a discussion group in Facebook that's like world renowned. It has all the soccer fans in the world on that group. I post there regularly. Twitter, you can get me there. I also post to myfantasysports.com with the mailbag questions. So just continue doing what you guys have been doing. I can't wait to get this started. Look for end of June to be the debut of the first actual episode.
There you go. Can't wait. That's all I know. Thanks, DDT. Hey, Dan, kid knows his soccer, man. He's an asset to myfantasysportstalk.com. If you didn't just listen to all that and think kid doesn't know his soccer, well, myfantasysportstalk.com is your place to be for all that soccer knowledge. Can't wait for the addition of a brand new podcast to the site.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Real quick question. There's a German team that has my last name with an E on the end of it. How do you pronounce it?
FC Schalke.
Schalke. All right. It's not the same.
No,
Thought I might be in part owner and not know. But
if you want to find a club to support, man, what better than one that has part of your name in it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Though their star player just left for Bayern Munich, though, so
Darn. So now I'm crushed.
Well, I heard your family, when they got to the U.S., Dan, your ancestor, when they got to the U.S., they were just a little lazy, so they just dropped that E. Like, I ain't writing all that crap out. So you might want to check into that. It might be some royalties left somewhere there.
I'm gonna look into it. Thank you for the info.
All the soccer information you can have right there. Hat Trick Podcast. Look for it soon from myfantasysportstalk.com. For our man DDT Dylan Davis Tirado, the owner and host of that podcast, and my co-host on the My Fantasy Podcast, Dan Shoggon, Brandon Reed. Next time, later, podcast peeps. Peace. All right, good job, dude.